everybody. My name is Rechabile Dladla, and we are here today with the Professor Zakes Mda. I don't know how many accolades this man has won. I don't know how many books he's written, how much he's done. I could not tell you. There is a myriad of things that he's done. He's a writer, copywriter, playwright. What else do you do?
I don't know, you tell me.
Artist, music writer, music composer. How did you say it? You wear many hats.
Okay.
That's something that you've said in one of your interviews.
So
yes, you have. You don't remember? Do you remember any of your interviews?
No, I don't.
Really? I hope you remember this one though. So today, this is the legendary Zakes Mda that we're going to be interviewing today, and I hope we answer some of the questions that you've been burning and dying to hear. So, that is Zakes Mda.
Hello.
How are you doing today?
Oh, I'm good. How are you?
I am so great.
Yes.
So lovely to see you.
That's lovely to see you too.
Again,
yes.
Yeah, so we first met in Kimberley when the Zakes Mda was exhibiting his art pieces, which were called, the exhibition was called Always the Sun.
Yes.
And we just want to know a little bit more about why you chose Always the Sun.
Well, I didn't choose it, in fact. What happened was, quite often after I've completed a new painting, I put it on Instagram. I have a page there which is just for paintings. So one of the people who always follow, my work said, "Always the sun." I wrote there, "Always the sun," which means that she observed that in most of my paintings, or if not all, there will always be the image of the sun. In whatever form, there will be something that you will interpret as the sun. I had not been aware of that, you see, because sometimes you paint, somebody else interprets the work, they see the sun there, and indeed I saw the sun she was talking about. And I agreed with her that, yeah, in fact, a lot of my paintings, if you look at them, there will be the image of something that you can interpret as the sun. So that then, I decided that, well, my next exhibition will be Always the Sun. Those were exactly her words, Suzette Mafuna, Always the Sun.
That's great.
Yeah.
And you just took that and it became the title of your...
My exhibition was actually named by a viewer or a follower of my work.
Yeah, I actually noticed that there's always the sun in any shape or form
as
well, because sometimes you put it as a mirror, sometimes it is, sometimes it is the actual sun. Sometimes
it may not be in the sky there, it may be on the ground or somewhere there,
So as I was observing the paintings, Always the Sun, there was a talk that you did the previous day, which was a talk about intertextuality. So I want to know, where do you draw that parallel between your writing and your artwork? And where do you get the inspiration from? Are there certain books that you've written? Are there other people's books or works that you've seen that informed your decision or your art pieces? As it stands?
Well, when we talk of influences, specifically influences rather than intertextuality, sometimes it's difficult to know. I mean, we are all influenced by somebody, whether it's their art, their writing, or even just their sayings, you know. And in many instances, you may not even know that those are your influences. It will be somebody who's looking at your work and see traces of that influence and points it out to you that, maybe you'll agree with that person or not. But in many instances, we don't know. But in some, we may know. Why? Because it's the instances where we are consciously trying to copy somebody's style or something, somebody whose work we love. Now, in that case, it's something conscious that the artist is doing. In my case, I've never tried to write like anybody or to paint like anybody. I always, have my own, what I thought, my own unique approach. But even in that so-called unique approach, and I say so-called because we are all influenced by somebody. Right. There will be influences of those who came before me. Intertextuality, on the other hand, is just something that naturally happens. Oh yes, it can happen consciously as well, especially in postmodern art, in postmodern literature, postmodern paintings, which in many instances, for instance, if we take a collage, a collage is definitely intertextual because you have taken pieces of other people's work and you have put them together, creating your own work from them. That is not influence, it's actual intertextuality, which is done consciously and very clearly that I want to take that work, for instance, if you look at some of my paintings, there's fabric, so this fabric would go well with the particular painting. Then I cut it and then I paste it there. There will be maybe newspaper articles or whatever, newsprint, patch it there. Sampling it, for instance, we'll have faces that he has composed, patched upon from other faces.
Even curtains in the background.
And so on, yeah. You see, that is intertextuality. Collages are intertextual. Intertextuality merely means that they draw from other from other texts, as they are. You don't try to disguise the fact. Right. You are not stealing. You are saying, I'm taking this work, whether it's from a fabric, from a newspaper, and so on. So you find that in contemporary art, generally, not just in painting. In fact, you'll find it in writing. Postmodern novels, they may have extracts that are drawn from other people's works. It's not plagiarism. Plagiarism is where you take something from somebody and pretend that it is yours. You see? In other words, it's theft. Intertextuality is not theft. It's something that, I take this piece from your work and patch it on mine because together they will mean something different from what you meant with yours. You see that. So you find it in all forms of art, especially in these modern times. For instance, if you listen to music, today some musicians sample others. Sampling. All that sampling thing that is done by contemporary musicians, that's intertextuality. That's not theft. That's not plagiarism.
What would you then say to someone who's saying that it has been in the past where someone is actively taking my work and they are making it seem as if it is their work? So if you were to take, for example, just a random example, if you were to take a newspaper and say that, okay, this article will make sense with my work, but I then don't give the credit to the person, what would you then say? Is it a form of stealing? Some people would say it's stealing, some people would call it plagiarism. How do we work around those issues?
You see, plagiarism is when you take something and pretend that it was composed by you. You see that? That is theft. But if I take a newsprint, I put it on my art, and I take a fabric. In art, there's no way you're going to credit there that, this newspaper is from the whatever it's called, from the Sunday Times, and this fabric is from a factory. Not my no, because you know that the viewers of that work are sensible enough to see that this comes from somewhere else. It's not manufactured by the artist, but the artist is using it there. You see, when I look at Sam playing It Was Work, or of another artist who loves intertextuality a lot, I think his name is Neo Matuha.
Yeah.
You find that you know that this and that, they came from all different sources. But you cannot call it plagiarism, because he actually makes it clear to you that he may not even have taken those photographs that he has used there, that they come from some newsprint somewhere or some magazine, and he has put them together there. That's not plagiarism, you see. Otherwise, if he was pretending that all those pieces that have been used there were originally composed by him, they don't come from other sources. Intertextuality and collage is precisely powerful because it comes from those other sources. If it all came from you, there would be no power in it.
Right.
Its power is that it draws from other sources that had their original meaning, then you take it and give it a new meaning in a new context, which is the context of your work.
In your exhibition, there is this man in a green blanket.
Yeah.
I need you to explain to people what that man represents and why you chose that man as a character, as a recurring character in all of your artworks.
I see. First of all, I'm happy that you call him a character, because a character, that term is only used in stories. You see, in painting they always talk of a figure. So you are doing figurative painting, that we are painting human beings, a figure. But why I'm happy that you call it a character is because I see my stories, my paintings, in the same light as I see stories. I see them as telling a story. That's why I call them narrative art. So they are in fact characters, whereas otherwise they would just be figures in a painting. Well, that character then has evolved from who he was in the beginning. In the beginning, the character was based on a real-life person who once lived, who was called Mdeneni Mambushnoki, who was part of the demonstrations in Marikana, when miners were fighting for more money, better working conditions, and so on. And he's one of those people who were killed. Quite a big number of people were killed by the police during the course of that strike. I'm told that others were killed by other miners, which is quite possible also. But a lot of them were gunned down, in footages that we have seen, by the police. Mambush was one of those. What fascinated me about Mambush is that after that, he became a symbol of the revolution. You have used that word, you see. And I didn't quite answer also about the revolution part when you asked me about it. Maybe you'll give me a chance to answer about that too.
We'll get back to it.
Yeah. So he was just an ordinary miner. When he woke up that day, he didn't know that by the end of that day he will be a national symbol of, because he was not even a leader, of that in that Amcrew trade union movement. He was just an ordinary worker who was striking with others, and so on. You see, so his story then, I found it quite fascinating, when he became an accidental hero, like that. So in my earlier paintings, which were in fact paintings about Marikana, well, I mean, I would portray maybe the men standing on that hill, that gopi, with holding their sticks and so on, or the men marching. Maybe then I would also give them flowers, to hold flowers, even as they hold their sticks as well. But as time went on, he evolved from being a character from the Marikana situation, Marikana massacre and so on, and transcended it. He transcended Marikana, and he began to feature in many different situations. If you look at my paintings, some of the situations, will be fantastical, in other words, it's fantasy, or magical realism, and so on. For instance, I remember in one of the paintings where I'm paying homage to my jazz friends who are dead, Hugh Masekela, Jonas Pango. Then they are playing the musical instruments.
Yeah,
then I put him there also playing an accordion or concertina. I don't quite remember what instrument it is.
It's an accordion.
Well, in real life, he never played any of that instrument. In real life, he never played with Hugh Masekela and Jonas Pango and so on. But in real life, they are all dead. So I put them there, playing music together. In other words, he has now transcended his real life self when he was still himself as Mambush.
Yeah.
He's now something quite different. And he features in many of my paintings, doing different things,
There are paintings that I saw last week or 2 weeks ago that are now currently situated at the William Humphreys Art Gallery. That's where Mr. Zakes Mda's exhibition is showing right now. There were paintings where the primary color that you used was actually yellow. I don't know if that was by accident or by chance. And then there's a word that you used, even now, it's called magical realism. Why are we calling it magical realism when it's things that could be set in real life, in reality, and
Yeah. Well, you see, in magical realism, the strange, the unusual, even the supernatural, exist in the same context as objective reality. You see, and that mode of storytelling, whether it's a novel, whether it's a painting, is known as magical realism, because it has both those elements, the elements of the strange, supernatural, but which exist side by side and in the same context and objective, with objective reality. The paintings, many of my paintings use that mode, you see. For instance, there's one painting which is very famous, I think, I no longer own it, it was bought. The man in the green blanket is riding on a scooter, chasing a cow, you see. And this cow, of course, is spotted, it has polka dots, you see. Now, in the real life, or so-called real life that we know, I don't think you've seen a cow with polka dots. It's possible for for any man to wear a green blanket and ride a scooter, but it's a situation that is not usual. That's why I said the unusual or the strange. It's a strange situation to have this man riding on a scooter, wearing his green blanket, chasing a spotted cow. You see, that is magical realism. There are elements of realism there that you see. It's possible to chase a cow. Anybody can chase a cow. It's possible to be on a scooter and ride around. It's possible to wear a green blanket, but a combination of all those things together are strange, are unusual. So that's realism and the supernatural together.
Yeah.
Is one element. So that's what magical realism is.
So the reason why I mentioned the yellow, I actually thought initially when I first was introduced to the exhibition that always the sun represents the yellow because there were so many yellow paintings over there.
I see.
And and then your representation of it was actually quite the opposite because there's an actual sun in most of the paintings. However, there were many different explanations or interpretations of what the artworks could have meant. I want to know from you, what was your favorite that people actually said, oh, this means something else that you actually didn't think of when you were drawing?
Oh, yes. Oh, that was a very beautiful interpretation. Yeah, because with me, I can tell you how I created the work, why I had this character or that character, where it comes from. Just like I've told you, the man in the green blanket, always the sun, and so on and so forth. But what it means, I mean, it's not for me to tell you that. Because any work of art, it depends on what it invokes in you, the person who's looking at it, what it invokes. I don't care about what it means myself. But it may mean something to you, and it's very interesting to hear. For instance, there's a painting that one lady there, one of the women who were looking at the paintings, who then, I think, first of all, in this painting, always the sun, remember? So I do have the sun, but that sun is made of a watermelon. And then the watermelon is raining seeds. The watermelon seeds are coming down. And then the man in the green blanket is walking there holding an umbrella to protect himself against the raining seeds of the watermelon. You see? Which tells you again about magical realism. Everything there is real in that there are watermelons, there are seeds, there are men with umbrellas. But the combination that watermelon is the sun, it rains, now that's not the realism we know, magical realism. There are kids who are skipping rope there, the girls. So when this woman came and looked at it, she said to me, this is a powerful painting that made him very sad, because to her, it invokes Palestine. The watermelon itself is a symbol of being Palestinian. It's a symbol of resilience that is used in Palestine. I didn't even know that, actually. And many people were surprised that I didn't know that. Oh, but that's a very common thing. I mean, the watermelon is one of the biggest symbols that the Palestinians use. Yeah. So I learned something there. And then, of course, she went on, of course, to look even at the colors that I use. You see, some of them representing the conflict between the Palestinians and the Israelis. She could analyze all that. And the man in the green blanket also, as a symbol in South Africa, amongst many other people, as part, of that, as the iconic figure of the revolution as people saw it then. She also saw it as the representing, of course, those ties that the struggle in South Africa and the struggle in Palestine, were closely related, which is why, of course, Palestinians are still our allies to this day, because our alliance comes from far back, during the days of apartheid. So that's what, this woman saw in that painting. To me, that was very fascinating, you see. Now, I know something I didn't know about that painting. I know exactly now what I was saying in that painting. I didn't know I was saying that.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. That's an interesting interpretation, because I actually saw the lady and she said it in that way. She was like, she sees Palestine, and I was like, how? But the way she explained it was actually very, very reminiscent of that, and she made a good linkage. Let's go back to why you started painting, how that came about. Did you start painting first? Did you start writing first? Which one came before the other?
Oh, painting. I think both painting and writing are things that I inherited from my father, particularly. My father was an artist, but for him it was just a hobby, because his day job, at first he was a teacher, he went back to school and studied law and became a lawyer. So his day job was law. But, just while away time, as he was sitting there, maybe at dinner table, he would start sketching us or people sitting around the table. So he loved just doing art, just for fun. So that we just, look how wonderful this is. How accurate he has captured our images and so on and so forth. He never took it any further than that. But then, of course, I think then we were highly influenced by that. But the earliest memory of me drawing or painting was, growing up. I grew up at first in Orlando East, in Soweto, and then later in Dobsonville. So I remember that during holidays, especially December holidays, we would go to Emakaya, as it was called. My Emakaya was down there in the Eastern Cape, near the Lesotho border, which is where my grandfather, had the whole mountain and orchards of different fruit trees. Then on that mountain, there were caves where, as we play around, we would go into the caves, and spelunk the caves and things like that. And of course, there were Bushmen paintings, as they were called then, paintings by the San people. And we would be fascinated by these paintings. Some were fading away. Then we would start drawing on them with chalk that was stolen from school, you see, drawing and so on, and tracing how the Bushmen painted their thing. Of course, that was vandalism, We didn't know any better. We were kids, and nobody told us not to do that, because those are natural galleries, that were left for us by the old ancestors, those same Bushmen people and so on. So there are galleries, not even galleries, museums, in fact, that we should be preserving and all that. But then, of course, part of that vandalism was part of, one learning about art. First of all, copying the Bushmen. Then when one is in class, the teacher is busy teaching. On exercise book, we are busy drawing old stuff. The Bushmen things, but now others as well, cars and things like that. That's how it all started. And of course, my father being an artist himself, there was that influence. My father being a conductor, of choral music, and then at a later stage, orchestral music. Then there was that music influence. My father being a writer, he's written many things for newspapers, for magazines, but not so long ago we were launching his book at the West University Theatre. All those were influences, growing up in that environment, you see. So I would also participate then in all those arts.
Let's go back to when you said that there were natural museums that were created for you guys. I think that's a very interesting way of actually looking at it. But why do you think that, it's coined as vandalism when we could be enjoying the same, the same type of art that is just there for us all to see? But there's this line that's been drawn. Oh, you can't write on walls. You can't paint on rocks. It would be so beautiful for us to see that today.
No, no one says you can't paint on rocks as long as they are your rocks. You go out there and paint on a rock. No one will fight against you. But these are museums. In the same way, you can't go to that museum in Kimberley called
William Humphreys.
William Humphreys. You saw all those paintings.
Yes.
Then you start. Mine are there too. Then you come with your own paint and start painting on them. Yeah? That is vandalism. It is the same as in those caves that the Bushmen used. And they actually left us those paintings.
Yes.
Those paintings. And we would like us to see and admire them and learn more about the Bushmen, how they lived their lives, what they did, how they went. They are paintings of different things. They go into trances. They do that. You also want your children's children to continue to see those. Now, if Zakes Mda comes in there and then start using on chalk, painting on those things, it's exactly the same as if you were to paint at William Humphreys there on those paintings that are there. These caves, it's very important that people should be taught to view them with reverence, because these are great works of art left, by people who lived thousands of years ago.
And what is your opinion of people who take these great works of art and try to remove them from the very people that are supposed to see these great works of art? For an example, there are rocks in
Humphreys.
Yeah, in William Humphreys, and you would take that rock. They got it not from. There's a place called Platfontein in the Northern Cape where the majority of the Khoi and the San people actually live, and they took that and put it in such a space where the very people who it was supposed to be meant for are not enjoying.
Yes, it's a double-edged sword, because vandalizing this national museum and taking these works away from them, as I say, it is vandalism. It's not different from what I did when I was a kid to paint them. I didn't know better. They have good intentions, of course, that, okay, not many people will be coming to this area to look at this. Let us steal some of it and put it in our real museum where we have kept paintings by other people, other generations that came after those Bushmen, including current, because my paintings are there too. And I feel proud that my paintings are in the same building where ancient people I've never seen have their work as well there. Right. So it's a good thing that way, but it's a terrible thing that they were stolen there from their natural habitat, natural environment, in order to please me there, so that then I can see them nearby instead of going where they are. You see? Right. So that's why I say it's a sword, with two edges, and there is the good in it, but there is the bad. So it just depends on individual people when you weigh it. There's no way you can deny is the bad aspects and the good aspects of it. When you weigh the two, it depends on you. I mean, which one you think, okay, we can sacrifice, because it's more the common good when it's there. Hundreds more people will see it. Whereas when it's in its natural habitat, people don't go there. It's mostly scholars who want to study there, who will go there.
Yeah, if I had an opinion, I would. It's one of those things we've been discovered by other people. Like someone else found this in its natural habitat and thought that, okay, it will be of more value in another place, monetarily, like in a monetary wise, but not necessarily for the people. Those people would actually gain value from it being in its natural habitat. The people who created the art, or they...
Well, they're dead.
No, I mean
they're
people
descendants.
that came after them. Obviously, if it's something like if someone is drawing a painting of them being in a trance, they want their descendants to see that this is what it looked like, or this is what we were doing. These are the practices. It's like someone writing a book and leaving it.
They were keeping a record
of
their lives,
what they were doing
for future generations.
So I don't know. It is a double-edged sword, and it is something that probably we should have a deeper conversation about as scholars, or even not scholars, just people in society. Let's go back to your childhood.
Okay.
Let's go back to where you grew up. Where did you grow up in the Zakes, and what schools did
Oh
you go
man,
to?
I grew up in many different places.
How were you as a boy,
When I was a boy, I was just a boy, You know how boys are. Boys generally are stupid. So I was just as stupid as any stupid boy you would find. So, and I grew up in many different places, went to many different schools. Just even primary school, I went to Blessed Martin in Orlando East. Then I went to Lodi Relay in Dobsonville and to Nakila. All those are primary schools in Golweni. So you already have counted 5, and they are still primary schools, all of them. Because we were being moved from one place to another, part of being moved by apartheid. For instance, I remember when I started in Dobsonville, the only school that was there was Setswana medium. Apartheid wanted you to go to the school of your language.
Right.
So they didn't have, Nguni, either Zulu or Xhosa school then. So I went to Lodi Relay, primary. Once I was in Lodi Relay, then they built a school. I said, okay, now this one will be for the Nguni children. So I had to leave Lodi. If you go to Lodi Relay now, it's still there in Dobsonville. You'll see a big plaque put by the government there which says Zakes Mda went to school here.
Oh, that's so nice.
Yeah. But there are other schools there where I went there even longer than in Lodi. They don't have a stupid luck. So anyway, maybe they don't know that I went to school there. I mean, I went to Nakila Primary School, which is still there. So I honor Lodi Relay more, even if I donate something. Lodi Relay, they're the ones who are recognizing me.
Right.
You see? And then from there, because I became a gangster, we're gangsters here. And my parents had to take me out of Soweto then to the Eastern Cape. Because, they were seeing like this boy will end up dead or something. Actually, one of my best friends died in those gang wars that we used to fight. Even though we were kids, I'm talking about street gangs of children. You see, boys from Dobsonville fighting with boys from Midlands or from Zola and so on. You know that with stones and getties and, playing truant, not going to school, instead of selling sweets in the train and so on. So they took me out of that environment and took me to my grandmother's place in the Eastern Cape. That mountain where there were those, fruit trees and the caves of the Abattoir people. And then I did my primary school there, and then my father came back. He was studying law at the time, and went to Zakes Mda, where he opened his practice as a lawyer. And then that's where I finished primary school. Now, if I count, it's more than 10 primary schools I went to. You see? And then from there, then after finishing primary school, that's when my father was exiled to Lesotho. And then I went to Lesotho. There again, I had to start, the final year of primary school there again. You see? And then went to high school there.
So, in the midst of all of this, where are you getting the writing? Where are you getting the art? Where are you actually practicing these things?
Throughout that, I'm doing my art. I'm drawing. I'm doing whatever, Yeah.
And then the writing, because obviously you need to. That's something that you need to grow into, and you need to. In order to get better, you need to keep writing.
Yeah, the writing also, is something that I continue to do. Write little poems here and there, and then one book that influenced me a lot was a book titled Ingumbo Yeminyanya by A.C. Jordan. I was actually named after a character in that book, Zanemvold.
Oh.
Yeah. Because it became a very popular book in my family, since it was about my clan, my people. And that's why I was named after that character. But it influenced my own writing, because my very first story to be published was titled Igqirha laseMvubasa. It was in isiXhosa. And if you read that story, I don't know where it is now. But I remember it as a story, that was trying very hard to be like Ingumbo Yeminyanya, like, A.C. Jordan's kind of writing.
So you were, that was actually a question that I was going to ask. Was that one book that got you into reading, into writing?
It was that one. And then Sesotho novels, authors like J.J. Machoba and Thomas Mufolo and so. I read those a lot. Many of them, reading them at school because they were part of, But then later, meeting those writers and interacting with them, those who were still alive, Matlosa, Machoban, and so on.
How did you not then end up writing in indigenous languages, or the languages that you spoke or knew how?
I told you that my first story that was published was in isiXhosa.
Yes.
But then I was growing in Sesotho environment when my parents now were exiled in Lesotho. And of course, I lost touch with the kind of isiXhosa with which you could write novels. And then I was using Sesotho now most of the time. But the constant has always been English, so I just continued to. So it was being uprooted from the Xhosa literary environment into a new literary environment. So whilst I was empowering myself with a new Sesotho thing, then I was writing in English. So it was just natural for me just to continue.
What about language preservation? What about, preserving those natural, our indigenous languages?
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with preserving them. You must use them. Then when you stop using them, then you will not be preserving them. My languages are not in any danger. There are many people who are writing in them, and they are very good at that. You see, I can't just jump in there and write when I'll be lousy when I'm writing in those languages.
Right.
You see, yeah. As long as people write in those languages and read in those languages, I encourage that. You see, me, I write in English because it is the language of the market. Because for me, writing is professional. I write in order to earn a living.
Right.
I'm not writing to preserve any language. It is the language of the present market, when I finish writing a novel, my publisher pays an advance of so much, then it is sold, then I get royalties of so much. I live on those, you see. So it is the language that my readers expect to read my work in, whether my reader is in Kenya or is in Canada, or, you know. So you will say, okay, why don't you write in Sesotho or Xhosa, then the work will be translated. How long does it take for it to be translated? Yeah, it will be translated maybe, ultimately. Some of my books have been translated, but after many years. What am I doing during that time? Or what do my children eat during that time? Because remember, I'm not just writing for fun, you know, just, or to say, if maybe, you know, like, I am a professor somewhere, I'm paid a salary, I'm writing in Setswana, then because, you know, it's nice to be a writer, and also I can preserve Setswana language. Now you can afford to do that. Because your writing is not primarily your livelihood. Right. Your livelihood comes from the salary that you're paid there. So you can then write for the purpose of preserving the language. So in all my languages, because I have many indigenous languages myself, there are writers already who are writing in them to preserve the language. Okay. I am writing to earn a living. Right. Yeah.
Okay. I know young writers, young artists today are looking for a source of inspiration when it comes to their writing. They're also looking for platforms or places where they can draw that inspiration from. And I think one of the words that you've spoken is that you should write what you don't know, right? So what happens if they are really searching for that source of inspiration and all they have to write is something that they do know? How do they then translate that into something that will want to be read by generations to come? Because what we do know is very limited at the end of the day. So why do you say that we should write what we don't know?
Well, I mean, we all write what we know at the end of the day. The slogan, write what you know, is what creative writing teachers always tell their students. And indeed, writing what you know pays great dividends because, you know, you are writing from experience. And therefore, you know, it's very likely to be, you know, very interesting, you know. So there's nothing wrong with writing what you know. What I'm opposed to is when creative writing teachers put that as if that is the only way of writing. If, for instance, a student has written from a different perspective, something that is not part of his or her experience, then they attack that. No, write what you know. No. I think you write anything you want to write about. Even if you don't know it, write what you don't know, because the process of writing about it becomes the process of knowing it. Because obviously you will research, as people who have encountered that, who are experiencing that, read about it, go to the internet. I mean, there are many sources that you can use to end up knowing about it. So at the end of the day, when by the time you finish writing that piece, of course you have written about what you know. But you didn't begin by knowing it. You didn't say, I cannot write about this because it's not part of my experience. I cannot write about working in the mines because I've never worked in the mines.
Yes, so there's this contentious space right now where we're talking about people writing our stories for us. That has been done in the past. They've been inaccurately writing stories about us. Precisely, some would argue, because they wrote what they did not know. And they would want to tell the story, but if somebody, a white person, for example, tells my story and it is inaccurate, then how do we then, you know?
Well, you see, write what you don't know badly. this is the same as writing what you know badly. Whether you're writing what you know or what you don't know, if you are a lousy writer, it's going to be lousy. Then that is bad writing. Write what you don't know does not mean that you must write badly. It actually means that you must be as accurate as possible. In fact, even more accurate than somebody who has experienced that. You see?
Right.
Yeah. You research some. When you say somebody was writing our stories, we all, I mean, we as writers don't only write about our stories.
Right.
Otherwise, I mean, the whole thing would be very limited. Because my experience only goes so far and thus far. You see? I write about many other things that I've never experienced before. I learn about them, I research them, you see. And if I've written terribly about them, you will call me out because you are part of the experience that I was writing about. And so my experience has been misrepresented there, you see. When you write what you don't know, when you are writing the other, writing other people or other environments and other situations, you need to research and have a clear grasp of that. Because you are writing in the world where there are all sorts of readers and people who are well versed with that subject will call you out. So that white person who wrote your story or what you think is your story, because stories belong to anyone, who, when I write a story, wherever it is set, it becomes my story. You see that? But if I've written crap about those people, that culture, that environment, they will call me out, and it's to my detriment as a writer. But that's not only the result of writing what you don't know. Even when you write what you know, if you write about it in a lousy manner, we'll still call you out.
Right.
Yes.
So in our age, there's a word called revolution, and revolution looks different to me than it does to you. In your day, there were activists, like real activists, that were in the streets shooting guns, etc., etc. I would like to know what you think the contrast between the revolution then was and what it is today, or if we even have that the agency to create a revolution. And I ask this from the backdrop of people having written what they don't know as our story. Like we've got a story to tell. We've got a story to tell today, and some people have written or are writing about it in voices that we may or may not agree with.
When it's a voices, I mean, look, bad writing is bad writing, you see. If they are writing something in a voice you don't agree with, and you feel it misrepresents that situation that you're talking about, then of course that's bad writing. Voice is one of the very key things in creative writing, very key elements of creative writing. It's very crucial that you get the correct voice, whatever story you are writing. If the voice is wrong, it does not tally with the characters you are writing about, the setting you are writing about, then that's bad writing, period. It would happen in any case when you are a lousy writer, whether you are writing about yourself, about your grandmother, or about somebody in Papua New Guinea, you see, which is a completely different culture. It will still be bad writing. Bad writing will always be bad writing,
And then the last, or the last segment of our question, I think I'll ask you 2 questions about this. Why did you move to America? How did that happen? And why is it that you decided to still stick to the themes of South African culture and the way we live here in South Africa, even though you're writing from America?
Oh, well, I do write about America too. I have novels that are set in America.
The Zulu,
No. Well, the Zulus of New York is set in America, but also in the... but the others, I mean, that are completely set in America. Zion, Rachel's Blue.
Yeah.
I just write the story that demands that I should write. An idea comes in my head. And I thought, oh, this is a beautiful story. It demands that I write it. If it's set in America, then I'll write it, set there. If it's set in Excelsior or in some other town in Hermanus in the Western Cape, then I'll set it there. The story itself tells you how it should be told, where it should be set. You see, yeah.
So how did you get to America? How did we
I went there. I went to America in 1981 for the first time because I was going to study for a master's degree in theater. You see, that's how I went there. I went there directly coming from Lesotho. I'd been to Switzerland before, which is where I did my bachelor's degree. And then went back to Lesotho again, which is where my family was based. You see, my parents and my brothers, everybody. And then from Lesotho, I went to America then to do a master's degree in theater. When I finished it, I did another master's degree in mass communication, which is called media studies today, radio and television and so on. So that's how I went. It was during apartheid. And then, of course, I got a job there and I stayed. You see.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. But I always enjoy just hearing you talk,
Really?
about writing, about art, about all these things, because you're so knowledgeable about these things. And it's so great that you're giving me and my generation the knowledge that you've got and like imparting it to all of us at this very moment. So I appreciate so much of your time. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Anyway, everybody, that was Zakes Mda. I don't know if you want to tell us where we can find your books. What is your latest book that's out right now?
No, I mean, my books...
everywhere.
No, well, I mean, not necessarily everywhere, but I would like them to be everywhere. They are in bookstores, I mean.
What's the latest book that you
if the bookstore doesn't have the particular title you want, you ask them to order it for you. Yeah. My latest novel is Wayfarer's Hymns, which is set in Lesotho, in Bloemfontein, Welkom, Soweto,
So, ladies and gentlemen, that was it for our interview with Ndate, Professor Zakes Mda. Please subscribe to our channel. We'll see you in the next episode. Bye.